Brasil é oportunidade, o coração econômico da América Latina. Um dos principais destinos de investimentos com espaço para cada vez mais negócios.
Brasil é tendência, jovem, digital, dinâmico. Voz vibrante e relevante nos grandes debates mundiais.
Brasil é inovação, um polo criativo, um hub de negócios onde as oportunidades se conectam com as cadeias globais de valor.
Brasil é força para construir, movimentar, colher, para produzir e, sobretudo, preservar o que lhe faz gigante.
Brasil é diversidade, de pessoas, de possibilidades. Uma nação formada por muitas e um país aberto para todos.
O Brasil é um mercado imenso, é potencial de consumo e que demanda grandes inovações.
Porque o Brasil também é evolução, dos marcos legais, do ambiente regulatório. Um país com grandes reformas para potencializar grandes investimentos.
Em transformação digital, em tecnologias agrícolas, em eficiência energética. Mais do que nunca, o Brasil é futuro, um mercado promissor e um polo de competitividade perante as novas tendências globais de produção.
O mundo todo sabe que o Brasil é um parceiro estratégico na busca de uma economia mais eficiente, sustentável e exponencial. As oportunidades estão bem aqui. Agora, chegou a hora de conhecê-las.
Fórum de Investimentos Brasil 2022. Patrocínio Itaipu Binacional e Petrobras. Realização ApexBrasil, Banco Interamericano de Desenvolvimento e Governo Federal.
Hello there, welcome to the Brazil 2022 Investment Forum, a realization of the Brazilian Export and Investment Promotion Agency, ApexBrasil, the Inter-American Development Bank, IDB, and the federal government. In its 5th edition, the forum has consolidated its position as the biggest investment attraction investment in Latin America, highlighting the transformations and opportunities of a country that has the vocation to grow in a consistent and sustainable way. Sponsored by Itaipu Binacional and Petrobras, federal government, the Brazil 2022 Investment Forum, BIF, aggregates visions that help understand how Brazil has been building a business environment that is increasingly safe and prosperous for investment. Ladies and gentlemen, it will be 2 days of intense programming with a series of channels, a series of panels, dialogues, and keynote speeches, and opportunities that are emerging in strategic sectors such as agribusiness, infrastructure, energy, and information technology. In addition, we will have the opportunity to reflect together on themes that directly impact investment decisions, such as Brazil's insertion in a new business model and global value chains. Taking place in a hybrid event with guests in here in our studio and with live broadcast over the internet and simultaneous interpretation service, which can be activated at any time. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the Republic, Jair Bolsonaro, accompanied by the Minister of State of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Carlos França, the Minister of State of Economy, Paulo Guedes, the President of the Inter-American Development Bank, Mauricio Claver Caroni, and the President of the Brazilian Agency of the Promotion of Export and Investment, Ambassador Augusto Pestana. And honoring the forum, we also have the honor of the opportunity of the Ministers of State, of Infrastructure, Marcelo Sampaio, of Citizenship, Ronaldo Vieira Bento, of Mines and Energy, Adolfo Saxida, of Science and Technology, Paulo Alvim, from the General Secretariat of the Presidency of the Republic, General Luiz Eduardo Ramos, of the Secretary of Government of the Republic, of the Presidency of the Republic, Célio Faria Jr., and of the Attorney General of the Union, of Senator Giordano and the federal deputy congressman, Captain Derrite, Eduardo Bolsonaro, Gilberto Nascimento, Pastor Márcio Floriano, and the president of Caixa, Pedro Guimarães. And now, kicking off the ceremony, let's now listen to the national anthem.
Nas margens plácidas de povo heróico, bravo, retumbante, do sol da liberdade em raios fúlgidos, brilhou no céu da pátria nesse instante. Se empenhou nessa igualdade, conseguimos conquistar com braço forte, em desejo por liberdade, desafia o nosso peito a própria morte. A pátria amada, idolatrada, salve, salve, Brasil, um sonho intenso, raio vívido, de amor e de esperança a terra desce. Sem teu formoso céu risonho e límpido, a imagem do cruzeiro resplandece. Gigante pela própria natureza, estrelas forte pálido colosso, e o teu futuro espelha essa grandeza. Terra dourada, entre outras vilas do Brasil, a pátria amada, dos filhos deste sol mais gentil, pátria amada Brasil. Deitado eternamente em berço esplêndido, ao som do mar e à luz do céu profundo, fulguras, ó Brasil, florão da América, iluminado ao sol do novo mundo, do que a terra mais garrida, teus sonhos lindos campos têm mais flores, nossos bosques têm mais vida, nossa vida no teu seio mais amor. A pátria amada, idolatrada, salve, salve, Brasil de amor eterno seja símbolo, lá para o teu centas estrelado, e diga o verde louro desta flor, mas no futuro e glória do passado, os seres da justiça grava forte, verás que o filho teu não foge à luta, nem teme quem te adora a própria morte. Terra dourada, entre outras vilas tem Brasil, a pátria amada, os filhos deste sol mais gentil, pátria amada Brasil.
Ladies and gentlemen, and now to welcome everyone who is with us, the president of ApexBrasil, Augusto Pestana, will take the floor. Thank you. President of the Republic, Mr. Minister of the State of Foreign Affairs and President of the Deliberative Council of ApexBrasil. Through you, Mr. Minister of the State of the Economy, I would like to salute and greet all of the ministers of states, vice ministers, and special secretaries who honor us with your presence here. Mr. President of the Inter-American Development Bank, Mr. Ambassadors, and on behalf of the Parliament members who are here, the President of the Caixa, the Chief Executive of Export Capital, I would like to greet all of the leadership of the private and public sector from Brazil and abroad that honor us with your participation live, with your participation whether live or virtually. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome welcome all to the 5th edition of the Brazil Investment Forum, BIF. This is an event that keeps on innovating and is carried out for the first time in a hybrid fashion, uniting the best of two worlds. The advantages of the traditional model of the eye-to-eye gatherings in which we miss so much, as well as with the convenience and the reach of digital platforms. Therefore, as we are here in São Paulo and live to practically all of the time zones of the globe, it's very comforting to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. On behalf of the Executive Directory of ApexBrasil, I would like to thank our partners in the organization of this event, the federal government and IDB, as well as our sponsors and supporters within Brazil and abroad. Today and tomorrow, we're going to bring to millions of people, decision makers, and people who a bunch of opportunities of investments and partnerships, a group of prospects that are just as great as a country such as Brazil, a country which, under your leadership, Mr. President, is becoming modernized and open to the world with pragmatism, a country that seeks the best patterns and practices, as our ascension to OCD shows, a country in which the business environment broadens and increases very fastly. In other words, a country that ensures freedom and brings all the opportunities for Brazilian and foreign investors to multiply themselves and transform their investment models, their ambitious vision, their innovating projects in products and services, a new product that will run the world, and employment and income to millions of Brazilians. These are irreversible conquests because they are directly linked to the national interest and the sustainable development of Brazil. ApexBrasil, an agency linked to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, is the witness of all of these accomplishments and the perspectives that they have generated. We are present in the 5 regions of Brazil along the valuable Brazilian business people in their ever-growing journey of internalization. We are in all of the continents with the power of foreign affairs, services, and our private partners promoting competitive and sustainable Brazilian products. We are here at BIF together with the federal government, disseminating together, along with foreign investors, the extraordinary opportunities that are offered by Brazil as a place of production and platform of exportation. Brazil as with an important link in the global trade chain, the nearshoring. If you know us well, you know what we are capable of. It is not by chance that we have become one of the fifth economies in the world. Stakeholders of fifth grade growth, reference in renewable energies and agriculture, a nation of 250 million inhabitants that offer scale with abundance of natural resources and human resources and a willingness to grow. With these credentials, as we like to be reminded by Chancellor Carlos França, Brazil invariably gets into the arena of solutions, not of global problems. This is the Brazil that the agency has the privilege and the duty to showing abroad, bringing facts and faithful information, fighting distortions or misinformation about our reality. This mission becomes even more relevant when we think that Brazil is changing very quickly with the redefinition of priorities and the openness of new horizons of cooperation. Regardless of the horizon, there will always be a certainty as we look at the global map. Brazil is too big to be unnoticed. It's a country that cannot be turned around. Propelled by its private and public partnerships, Apex will always be active along with the foreign investors to ensure that they make the right decision, the decision of investing or reinvesting in Brazil. To conclude, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. President, when Brazil celebrates the bicentenary of its existence and Apex is in its 4th century of existence, we evoke a moment that has become very remarkable for BIF in the edition of 2019, more precisely on the 11th of October 2019, in this very place where we are today. After presenting the panorama of the perspective of the new cycle of investments and infrastructure in the country, the Minister Tarcísio de Freitas did not resist and offered a short message to the pessimists. He said, "Pessimists, I apologize, but Brazil will be great. Brazil will be fantastic." We cannot be more precise or precise, but the fact is, in spite of all the difficulties such as the pandemic, international conflicts, maybe we can update in this BIF the realistic message to the pessimists. Brazil is doing all right, and will continue going in the right direction. Good. I wish you a wonderful business council on ApexBrasil. Thank you very much. I would like to thank Mr. Augusto Pestana, and now we hand the floor to the President of Inter-American Development Bank, Mr. Mauricio Claver Caroni.
Isso vai ser
by a lot. The region has proven that it can debunk predictions because of its resilience and because of something we have in abundance, opportunity. Brazil can provide many of solutions that the region, that the world needs right now, from realigned, resilient supply chains to abundant, solid, sustainable investment across sectors. Our commitment to Brazil and to your business community has never been stronger, and that's why last year we approved $2.2 billion in sovereign and non-sovereign guaranteed financing for Brazil last year alone. More than 40% of that went to the country's robust private sector through our private sector arm, IDB Invest. And we're not just looking in the rearview mirror. Our current pipeline of projects is preparation exceeds even that $2.2 billion, from investments in micro, small, medium-sized enterprises to sustainable food production to digitalization and more. Brazil continues to make key advances in areas that's going to benefit people, benefit the global economy, convince investors even further that this is a prime partner. It is the country of today. I mentioned global supply chain disruptions, and whether they're from the pandemic, stemming from China, manufacturing, linked to Russia's war on Ukraine, and food and energy security, I'm sure that there is hardly a business leader with us today who has not experienced its effects on their operations. Latin America and the Caribbean, Brazil in particular, is well positioned to help alleviate these disruptions and other global economic stresses through trade, so it can diffuse some of the inflationary pressures that are shaping the world's economy. Brazil is the economic powerhouse of Latin America and the Caribbean. It has many competitive advantages, has some of the greatest potential. Last week, the IDB gathered dozens of ministers and senior officials from commerce, foreign affairs, and economy ministries throughout the region, alongside more than 100 leading multinational companies, to discuss the components of a new trade agenda for the Americas, one that's based on diversified supply chains, including those nearshored in relations to the world's biggest economy, the United States. The IDB has been a leader amongst all international financial institutions on this issue from the start, and we're proud of it. When people criticize us, said, hey, no, the IDB is not a foreign investment agency, it's a development bank. It's like, no, job creation is development. It's the key to development. And based on the outcomes of last week's conversation, the IDB will develop and share an action plan for how our institution will offer even more innovative solutions in the public and the private spheres for investment, trade, integration. Similarly, we have mapped 100 areas here in Brazil where Brazil is primed to seize the opportunities presented by global realignment, from machinery to agriculture, software, artificial intelligence. You are leaders. And buoyed by this large pool of human talent, world-class universities, innovation capabilities, and a continent-leading entrepreneurial ecosystem, as well as shared borders with almost every South American country, we estimate that Brazil can receive nearly $8 billion annual boost in export of goods by taking advantage of the opportunities that we're presenting. In the latest example of our work in support of that goal, we're announcing new financing this week to improve road infrastructure in the Northeast that's going to link products of high export potential to wider markets while also creating jobs. Also, the $8 billion I just mentioned is for the export of goods alone. Just goods. $8 billion per year. Not services. So imagine what that could be, where Brazil is a leader globally. So there are ample opportunities for nearshoring of IT. We talk about nearshoring, manufacturing, et cetera. We talk about IT. Professional business services, where Brazil is a leader. Now, all of this opens up an even greater window for you, the world's private sector leaders, to invest in projects, industry, supply chain strengthening right here, benefiting your bottom lines while helping maximize the enormous development-boosting economic potential of Brazil, because you're in the right country at the right time. Indeed, public-private partnerships across sectors is what's going to turn possibility into reality. Brazil's attractiveness to global investors is experiencing post-pandemic rebound, with foreign direct investment rising 78% last year to $50 billion. And that makes this country one of the top 10 most attractive destinations in the world for foreign direct investment. Brazil and the IDB are setting our sights even higher. We're committing to action that's going to yield results. We're actively structuring resources dedicated to supporting PPPs and concessions that are going to generate $5.5 billion in expected capital expenditure investments over the coming decade. Last month, we were proud to partner with BNDES, Brazil's development bank, as well as the Latin American Association of Development Financing, to launch the Latin Projects Hub. This is a platform that we created together with BNDES to basically take that portfolio of infrastructure privatization projects, considered the largest of its kind in the entire world, to offer investors like you a unified strategic view of opportunities in concessions and public-private partnerships in Brazil and beyond. And that's going to allow you, it's going to create a hub that's going to let you identify synergies, opportunities for increased investment, while at the same time enabling the region to advance towards infrastructure that the citizens deserve, and that's going to be a huge driver for sustainable recovery. The government of Brazil also launched its Innovation, Sustainability, Investment Monitor, a project that was developed with the IDB as well as with the support of the United Kingdom. And that's a digital portal which provides investors free, transparent, consolidated access to information about the various opportunities in this country, with special attention to sustainability parameters in the planning, financing, and structuring of projects. So as you all know as well, lots talked about, the global ESG market is soaring into the trillions of dollars. And Brazil's unparalleled natural resources and social diversity can make it a worldwide leader in attracting this pro-development financing. There's $25 trillion sitting on the sidelines right now in ESG investment, just looking to where to be invested. Imagine if we captured 10% of that for Brazil. 10% of that, $2.5 trillion, half the GDP of Japan. Game-changing. And Brazil can do it. So I should also mention, before I wrap, two new tools that I've just described, which are a testament to both Brazil's and the IDP's leadership in digitalization, and also that can help unlock the transparency and competitiveness to boost growth and attract private financing. Brazil led the world in the private participation in infrastructure investments in 2021, and the trend looks set to continue. We have major auctions planned for the development of trade-related other infrastructure, water, ports, airports. The latter two are contributing to massive potential supply chain development that I referred to. And look at the environment here. Look what you're launching. By the way, congratulations. You have a world-class privatization taking place this afternoon. The world's eyes are upon you. And this reflects commendable improvements made on regulatory frameworks over recent years with the leadership of Minister Guedes on key sectors. We've seen water, sanitation, railroads, telecommunications, startups. And we're proud to have supported from the IDB. And I barely scratched the surface of the opportunities for Brazil and the international investment community that's with us here today. I believe in Brazil, you should believe in Brazil. Agriculture, energy, tech, all sectors, massive potential, sustainable economic growth, even more robust private sector role that we can have. Brazilian agricultural exports reached a record $121 billion in 2021, and the country is one of the world's largest exporters of grains. Increasing that capacity and connectivity of supply chains today could also mean helping alleviate that global food and security investments in greater efficiency and sustainability, which will also be key. The IDB's $1.2 billion credit line to Brazil is focusing on efficient, technology-based resilient land use. And those are resources that we channel through the federal government, but to states, municipalities, so they can respond to the needs of farmers across the country. In the energy sector, Brazil's wealth of renewable resources is increasingly translating into cleaner power, more opportunities for green investment. IDB Invest efforts led to the mobilization of financing for major photovoltaic plants. And electromobility in Brazil provides an example for the world of the increasingly complete continuum of public-private sector support that the IDB can offer. The IDB is working with electricity providers in the southern region states to study possible electric car corridors, while IDB Invest provided $250 million this year to finance electric vehicles and long-term decarbonization strategy to Grupo Simpar and Movida. And of course, to conclude, how could I not say a few words about the Brazilian tech innovation entrepreneurship ecosystem? One of the prides of this country, one of the prides of the world, an essential element both to the regional and global economy. In fact, this week, through our innovation laboratory, IDB Lab, we're announcing the second edition of Bid ao Cubo, an initiative with Brazil's main technology center, Cubo Itaú, to immerse promising startups from across Latin America and the Caribbean into the Brazilian ecosystem. More than half of the unicorns born in the region last year were Brazilian. And our new study with LinkedIn shows the Brazilian talent pool has the region's highest penetration of tech skills, and of the record wave that we've seen of venture capital recently flowing into Latin America and the Caribbean, guess what? The majority is headed right here to Brazil. Much of that capital is also headed into fintechs, an area that is booming today. Nearly a third of the region's total fintechs are in Brazil, reflecting tremendous momentum for financial inclusion, digitalization, economy, small business lending, digital infrastructure, connectivity, e-commerce, digital supply chain insertion, investment opportunities from top to bottom. IDB and IDB Invest have been and will continue to be ambitiously encouraging the digital revolution that's taking place right here in Brazil, that's being led by Brazil, and we hope that all of you will join in. This fifth Brazil Investment Forum caps a momentous week and a half for the IDB, and I am proud of the announcement that was made last week at the Summit of the Americas by President Biden on his support for a capital increase for IDB Invest. We're becoming the premier mobilization bank of the world, of all international financial institutions. And as many of you will likely recall, and as you've seen from efforts over the past 2 years, this was one of my original goals for this institution, and we accomplished it in record time. In total, these eventful days and developments prove the wisdom of our plans for a new IDB based on a holistic continuum of financial tools, technical support across the public-private sectors, an IDB that will enable the region's private sector-led recovery, growth, while ensuring it is in service of sustainable and inclusive development. All of you here today are part of our vision, from our partners in the government of Brazil, whom I thank, to the member companies in our private sector coalition, to all of the investors and experts in attendance today. Let's take advantage of this, the largest foreign investment event in all the Americas, to materialize the many mutual benefits that are waiting for us right here in Brazil, right place, right time. Obrigado.
Nossos sinceros agradecimentos ao presidente do Banco Interamericano de Desenvolvimento, Maurício Kleber Caroni, e nós vamos dar seguimento dando ao ministro de Estado das Relações Exteriores, embaixador Carlos França.
São muitos. Se nós tínhamos alguma dúvida de que o Brasil vai dar certo, ouvindo o ministro Pestana, já tínhamos ficado tranquilos. Ouvindo o presidente Kleber Caroni, ficamos, então, absolutamente tranquilos, porque otimismo é o que não falta e é muito necessário nesse momento. Eu queria agradecer também aqui e registrar a presença dos deputados federais Eduardo Bolsonaro, capitão Derrite, pastor Marco Feliciano, que recentemente teve a honra de nos acompanhar, nos deu a honra de nos acompanhar uma delegação do Ministério das Relações Exteriores a Luanda, numa importante missão, que teve também, não é, deputado?
Foreign Affairs visit in Luanda, and through your excellencies, I would like to compliment all the other congressmen. Gil Diniz, I also compliment your presence here today. I salute also the co-host of this event today, and I could not miss to congratulate the president of ApexBrasil, my colleague, Ambassador Augusto Pestana, for whom I would like to highlight the wonderful dinner last night. Very representative numbers we had yesterday, and this is this shows how successful you were with recommendation of the Minister of Foreign Affairs to promote him to Ambassador First Class. So congratulations, Ambassador. But the party is not over. The representatives of the different sectors of industry, agribusiness, and tourism. I'd like to thank the presence of the ambassadors and everyone who came from Brasilia to attend this event and show your messages. I hope you take the message out and bring investments. It's an honor to be at this event, BIF.
Que o governo brasileiro, a ApexBrasil e o Banco Interamericano de Desenvolvimento, o BID, organizam aqui em São Paulo desde o ano de 2017. Trata-se, e nunca é demais repetir, do principal evento do gênero na América Latina. A economia mundial, sabemos nós, atravessa uma conjuntura de grandes desafios, marcada pelos esforços em prol da recuperação sustentável, na esteira da pandemia e por um conflito de repercussões internacionais cujas consequências econômicas parecem indicar dificuldades no médio e longo prazo. Eu noto, porém, que antes mesmo dessas situações extremas, o mundo já vinha passando, desde a crise de 2008, por um importante processo de reorganização produtiva. O momento parece exigir do Brasil uma atenção prioritária à sua inserção nessa economia global em transformação, em que pressões protecionistas se intensificam. Tendo isso presente, eu comentarei inicialmente os esforços que temos empreendidos no Itamaraty, sob a condução do presidente Jair Bolsonaro, relacionados à promoção de comércio e investimentos, bem como ao apoio à modernização e à internacionalização da economia brasileira. Em primeiro lugar, eu quero referir-me à accessão do Brasil ao OCDE, uma das prioridades determinadas pelo presidente Jair Bolsonaro desde o primeiro dia do seu governo. Em janeiro último, a decisão daquela organização de abrir formalmente o diálogo para a adesão brasileira representou um marco histórico para o país, sendo resultado de intenso engajamento diplomático. Com a aprovação pela OCDE semana passada do roteiro de acessão do Brasil, as tratativas com os membros da organização agora ingressam em etapa de intenso trabalho técnico, com potencial de aperfeiçoamento de políticas e práticas brasileiras em temas como o desenvolvimento sustentável, legislação tributária, transparência no setor público, entre outros segmentos cruciais para o fortalecimento da segurança jurídica. Eu, nesse particular, gostaria de agradecer especialmente ao ministro Paulo Guedes e ao ministro Ciro Nogueira, cujas equipes e cuja liderança foi fundamental para que nós pudéssemos chegar nesse momento com credibilidade com o nosso processo de acessão junto ao OCDE. O governo do presidente Jair Bolsonaro, é bom que deixemos isso muito claro. Está determinado a levar adiante esse processo que ocorre em benefício da sociedade brasileira e de todos aqueles que investem na geração de emprego e renda no Brasil. Nós estamos trabalhando aqui, presidente, juntos, no seu governo, por uma economia moderna e competitiva, pela consolidação de uma reputação positiva junto a credores internacionais, pela atração de fluxo crescente de investimentos produtivos e pelo aprofundamento da modernização de nossa economia. No que diz respeito às disciplinas multilaterais de comércio, nós temos nos engajado em intensas negociações para promover um sistema baseado no direito internacional. Um sistema que atenue tendências protecionistas e mantenha condições de competição internacional equânimes, o chamado level playing field. A Conferência Ministerial da Organização Mundial do Comércio, a Ministerial Conference, MC12, is taking place in Geneva at this very moment.
Brazil will contribute so that the MC12 achieves concrete results on pressing issues such as agriculture, trade and health, fisheries subsidies, and the reform of the WTO itself. We maintain permanent dialogue with our Mercosur partners to guarantee broader access for Brazilian products to international markets. We are working so that Mercosur can once again conclude agreements with various markets and countries around the world. In our actions at the WTO, OECD, G20 and BRICS, we have defended the strengthening of the multilateral trade system, the revitalization of the world economy, including its digital dimension, the reform of the WTO, the liberalization of global supply chains, and sustainable development. Ladies and gentlemen, sustainability. I'd like to also comment the initiatives in the economic field. Brazilian Embassy Network and trade offices, we called SECONs, have an important role, a vital role in the effective use of trade opportunities, the attraction of investments, and the internationalization of Brazilian companies. President Bolsonaro, these are 120 trade promotion units that only in 2021, in the middle of the pandemic, developed about 200 activities to promote our trade and attract investments worldwide. These are initiatives such as fairs and missions, studies and publications of business interest, and support to Brazilian companies that face contractual barriers and difficulties in several countries. All this work is being coordinated by Itamaraty's Trade and Investment Promotion Department, which we have just recreated to the organogram of Itamaraty on April this year. We promote the most diverse sectors such as food, fuel, clothing, electroelectronics, pharmaceuticals, machinery and equipment, minerals, and many others in which we are competitive.
Atuamos nessa área de promoção
In
comercial em
the
estreita
commercial
coordenação
promotion
com a
area, we
ApexBrasil,
work in
com
close
entidades de
coordination
classes
with
setoriais e
ApexBrasil,
com outros
with
ministérios
sectorial
do seu
class
governo,
entities and
presidente.
with other entities.
Buscamos uma divisão de trabalho adequada
We seek
à
a division
vocação
of
de cada
labor that is
órgão e
appropriate to the
envolvemos nossa
vocation of
extensa
each
rede de
body,
postos no exterior nas
and
atividades
we
de
involve our
inteligência,
extensive
de
network of
organização
offices
e de
abroad
contatos.
in the activities of intelligence,
Temos
organization, and
trabalhado
contacts.
incessantemente no Itamaraty
We have
para
been
atrair
working
ao
to
Brasil
attract
investimentos
targeted
direcionados
investments to Brazil,
sobretudo a projetos
especially
estruturantes,
in
como os do
structuring
Programa de
projects,
Parcerias de
such as those of the
Investimentos, PPI,
Investment
de
Partnership
modo a
Program,
promover a modernização e a
PPI, in order to
competitividade
promote
de
the
nossa
modernization and
Igualmente,
competitiveness
temos
of
organizado
our
missões ao
economy.
exterior juntamente com
We
vários
have also
ministérios da
organized
área
missions
econômica,
abroad together
com o
with several
BNDES
ministries of
e
the
com a
economic
ApexBrasil,
area,
com o
the
objetivo
BNDES
de
and
atrair
ApexBrasil,
operadores e
in order to
investidores para
attract
as nossas
operators and
concessões de
investors
infraestruturas
for our
física e
physical and
energética,
energy
em paralelo
infrastructure
aos nossos ativos de
concessions, in
saneamento
parallel
e
to our
tantos outros
sanitation
setores.
assets and many other
Apenas em
sectors.
2021 foram
In
organizadas missões aos
2021,
Estados Unidos,
missions
Europa
were
e ao
organized to
Oriente
the
Médio.
United States,
São
Europe,
iniciativas de
and the Middle
promoção de
East.
investimentos que
These
buscam trazer ao
investment
Brasil
promotion
a
initiatives
tecnologia e a
seek
perícia
to
dos
bring to
principais
Brazil the
operadores do
technology
mundo,
and
num
expertise
esquema
to the
concorrencial,
world's main
colocando-os a serviço
operators,
da melhora
in
da
a
logística da
competitive scheme,
produtividade,
putting them
da
at the service of
competitividade e
improving
da qualidade
logistics,
de vida
productivity,
no Brasil.
competitiveness,
Quando eu cheguei ao
and the quality
Ministério em
of
abril do
life
ano
in
passado,
Brazil.
presidente,
The-
enfim, agradecido ao
When
convite
I
que me fez Vossa
arrived at
Excelência, o ministro
the
Paulo Guedes, aqui
Ministry of
presente, me
Foreign
disse:
Affairs last
Ministro
year,
França, eu acho que a sua gestão no Itamaraty deveria ser
Minister
marcada
of Economy mentioned
por
that
foco maior do Itamaraty, uma atuação maior na
Mr.
área de
França, I believe
investimentos.
that
E para
your
isso nós pudemos contar
focus
com o
should be
apoio
in
do
promoting
presidente Gustavo
businesses
Montezano, do
abroad.
BNDES, renovo aqui meu agradecimento, que tem feito um treinamento, presidente, de
I like to thank
diplomatas em
one
alguns
of my
países-chave
peers here
que têm
today
vindo ao Brasil, vieram
to,
recentemente, voltarão esse ano,
allowing
estiveram na
this to
B3,
happen.
estiveram no workshop no BNDES
We
no Rio de Janeiro,
received guests
receberam
here
aulas
to
e
learn
palestras
about
ali no
Brazil,
Itamaraty, em Brasília,
and
de
in
modo que possam ficar
Itamaraty, in
sensibilizados
Brasília,
e formados
in
para a
order to be
possibilidade
more
de, nesses países-chave,
create
poder, então,
awareness
captar,
of
enfim, essas
Brazil's
tendências e poder,
potential
então, ajudar na atração de
and how
investimentos
to attract
estrangeiros ao Brasil.
foreign
Essa,
investments
portanto,
to
presidente, é
Brazil.
uma agenda comum para a atração de investimentos em grandes projetos de
This is
infraestrutura que,
important
como eu
to
disse, tem aproximado o
work
Itamaraty
with large
e o
infrastructure
BNDES.
projects
Estamos trabalhando
that have
juntos
brought
agora para
Itamaraty
integrar
and
nossas redes de
BNDES
informação
close together.
dentro de nossas
We have worked
respectivas
together to
competências,
integrate
de modo a
our
divulgar o
information
papel
networks
exercido com
within
excelência pelo
our
BNDES
respective
do
competencies
presidente
in
Montezano na
order to
estruturação
disseminate
financeira desses
the role
projetos.
played with
A
excellence
difusão
by
de
the
informações sobre
BNDES
essa
in the
fundamental
financial
capacidade do
structuring of
BNDES
these
tem o potencial de
projects.
reforçar o interesse
The
do
diffusion
investidor
of
estrangeiro,
information about
tendo
the
em vista a
fundamental
reputação do
capacity
banco
of the
também como criador de
BNDES has the
projetos de
potential to
alta
reinforce the
qualidade
interest
técnica.
of foreign investors,
Em
considering the
global
reputation of the
marcado
bank
por tantas
also as a
incertezas,
creator of projects of
precisamos,
high
presidente,
technical
persistir na
quality.
defesa de mundo mais justo,
In a global
pacífico e aberto,
context marked
em
by
que o
so
Brasil,
many
sob orientação de
uncertainties,
Vossa
we need
Excelência,
to persist
possa
in defending
partilhar
a
da
fairer,
prosperidade
more
que
peaceful and
decorrerá
open
da
world in
recuperação
which Brazil,
econômica
under the
internacional.
guidance of our
Muito
President Jair
obrigado, bons
Bolsonaro,
negócios
can
e
share in
até
the prosperity that will come. Thank you very much.
Nossos sinceros agradecimentos ao senhor Carlos França, e agora nós convidamos para fazer uso da palavra o ministro de Estado da Economia,
Our sincere
Paulo
thank you,
Guedes.
and now invite Minister of Economy Paulo Guedes.
Bom dia a todos.
Good morning to all.
Bom dia, presidente,
Good morning, Mr. President,
amigos, ministros, deputados. Eu vou fazer
estimated
duas
colleagues
considerações
and congressmen.
relativamente breves, porque depois
I will
nós vamos
just
ter tempo para
mention
estender
two
isso ao longo
brief
do fórum.
issues.
A primeira consideração
The first
é sobre o que está acontecendo lá fora.
issue is what's happening
É um
abroad.
mar turbulento
It's
e eu não acho que vai melhorar tão cedo.
it's
Eu
a
acho que vai se
disturbing
agravar bastante
scenario,
a
and I
situação
don't
da
think
economia
this will
mundial.
be a short term. It will
São
last for
basicamente
quite
três
some time.
razões. A primeira
Basically,
razão,
are three
que é o
reasons
pano
for
de
this.
fundo,
The first
é
one
algo que
is
está
the
começando
background.
como a radiação cósmica do universo, né? A
This
gente sabe
is
que
like
vem
the
o Big Bang,
cosmic
tem
radiation
tem
of the
ruído
universe,
cósmico de fundo.
Big Bang. They
Está
have this
acontecendo já
cosmic
há
field
30
beneath,
anos, é o que em
behind it.
economia nós chamamos o teorema de
And what
Stoker-Samuelson,
we called
que é a
it
equalização
the
dos preços dos fatores.
Stoker-Samuelson
Está acontecendo há 30,
theory.
40 anos é o seguinte, 3,7
what happened
bilhões
3,
de
4
indivíduos
years
estão
ago,
saindo da miséria
a lot of people are going out of
na China,
level of misery in China,
no leste
Russia,
europeu, no
Eastern
sudeste
Europe,
asiático,
Southeast
na
Asia,
Indonésia,
Indonesia,
3,7 bilhões de pessoas
3.7
saindo da
billion
miséria
people
lentamente através da
getting out
globalização.
of misery through
E a pressão
globalization.
toda no Ocidente.
And the
Há
pressure in
30
the
anos,
Western
os
world,
salários do blue collar, de quem trabalha na indústria, não
the
sobe.
paycheck of blue
Há
collars
30
is
anos
not
que
rising,
a
are
pressão
not rising.
competitiva da Ásia
And
impede
economic
o
pressure from
crescimento
Asia
dos salários e dos ganhos
prevents
no
growth
Ocidente.
of
Então,
the
esse
big,
teorema de
in big countries
equalização
in
dos
the Western
fatores,
world.
dos preços de fatores de produção, factor price
And
equalization
the
theorem,
factor price
ele diz o seguinte:
equalization is
como as
about this.
tecnologias são conhecidas, as
Because
tradicionais de fazer
technologies are known,
automóveis, de
at
fazer
least the more traditional, how to
barragens
manufacture
hidrelétricas, de fazer
cars,
estradas, de fazer manufaturados,
power
televisões,
plants,
são tecnologias
manufactured
conhecidas.
roads.
Então, você
These are all
transfere a
well
sua
known.
planta para a
And
Ásia,
so you
começa a produzir
transfer
lá,
your plant to
desde
Asia and you start producing
manufaturados até
their
tênis,
manufactured
até,
goods,
semicondutores. Os
semiconductors,
salários começam a subir na Ásia
and
e eles ficam
salaries
sob pressão
raised
no
in
Ocidente.
China
Isso
and are
causa
under
toda
pressure
pressão política
in
nos
the
regimes
West.
democráticos. Aí você
And
tem o
this puts
Brexit
pressure on
na Inglaterra,
democratic
aí você tem
countries.
o
You have
Macron na
Brexit
França, aí você
in
tem o
the
Trump nos
UK,
Estados Unidos.
you have
Quer dizer,
Macron
a
in
pressão
France,
sobre o Ocidente
and Trump in the
é
US.
dramática,
And so you have a
porque,
pressure
na
in the Western
verdade,
world
o
that
Ocidente
is dramatic.
esqueceu as fontes
And
de sua
so,
própria riqueza. O Ocidente esqueceu que ficou rico
and
trabalhando,
so
competindo,
West, they forgot they gone
estudando.
rich.
E enquanto o Ocidente desfruta
And
da
while
sua riqueza,
the Western
dando férias
world
6 meses, dando
enjoys
aposentadoria generosa antes da hora,
the
enquanto
good
o Ocidente
side
desfruta
of their
dessa
life
riqueza,
and of their
o outro
wealth,
lado do mundo trabalha
the other side of the
24
world
horas por dia,
is working
compete, não tem encargos
24/7.
trabalhistas, não tem
They
nada
don't
disso. Eles
have
estão competindo, então,
labor
assim,
laws,
os salários sobem lá e caem aqui,
and the salary raises
a
there.
pressão política
And
toda
now
do
the
lado de cá e
politic
do lado de
pressure
lá
are on
estão
this
saindo da
side.
miséria.
And over there,
Depois de
they're
30
leaving
anos,
misery.
essa global
After
labor
30 years,
arbitrage, que a gente chama essa arbitragem de
This
trabalho barato,
global
acaba.
arbitrage
E ela acabou.
ends. And it's
Quando ela acaba,
ending
os
now.
salários começam
When
a
it
subir no
does,
mundo inteiro. Então a inflação
prices
já
grow
subiria
all over the world.
naturalmente
And so
nos Estados Unidos,
it
na
would
Europa, já há
grow
algum
naturally
tempo
in
que
the
essas
US.
pressões existem.
And in the US, for example, we have these
Pressões
pressures
de
for
custo.
some time.
Até hoje não
Cost,
houve inflação para abrir
pressure,
essa
for
arbitragem.
example,
Enquanto você
pressure
tem
on
gente
cost.
para contratar
And
mão de obra mais
while
barata do lado de
you
lá do
don't
mundo,
have
você não tem a
people to
pressão dos
hire.
salários do lado de cá. Acabou essa
And now this
arbitragem
is
e
over,
os salários estão
this
subindo
arbitrage.
no mundo inteiro.
And salaries are growing
Dois.
all over the world, too.
A pandemia. A
Pandemics.
pandemia deu um choque adverso
Pandemics
de oferta. Quer dizer, a economia
gave a shock of
sofreu uma ruptura nas cadeias de
supply.
produção. E essa ruptura, esse
And
choque
this
de
caused
oferta,
a rupture
é o
in the
pior
global
dos choques.
supply chain.
É um choque
And this
adverso
is
de
the
oferta,
worst
ele é o
shock
pior
we
dos
could
choques, porque é mais inflação e menos
face,
crescimento ao mesmo tempo.
because it's more
Porque
supply
você
and
tem a
less
ruptura
growth.
nas cadeias produtivas.
Because
E
we
quando o Brasil
had
começa
this
e o mundo começa a
break
tentar
in the
sair
productive chains.
dessa circunstância
And
adversa,
while we try to
vem a
get
guerra
out
na
of
Ucrânia,
this
a
situation,
invasão da Ucrânia.
we have
E a
Ukraine
Ucrânia,
invasion.
grãos. A
And Ukraine is
Rússia,
grains.
energia.
Russia
Então, o preço de
is
comida
energy.
e energia
And the
subindo
price
no mundo
of
inteiro.
food and
Então, você
energy
tem
is
três
growing
choques
all over the world.
formidáveis, colossais, ao mesmo
And
tempo,
so we have
botando pressão no mundo.
many different types of shock.
E o mundo começa a pensar
impact
na
all over the world.
reconfiguração das cadeias
And
produtivas.
now we try
Se
to
tiver
think
que
of
ser
on
uma coisa
reconfiguration
hoje, o que está
of the
acontecendo no
supply
mundo mais
chains,
importante do
productive
ponto de vista de
supply chains.
oportunidade com o Brasil. É a reconfiguração das cadeias
And so
produtivas.
this is what's
Tem a
happening
parte
now,
ruim da
is
crise e tem a
the
parte boa. A parte
reorganization
ruim da
of the
crise
productive chains.
vai lamber lá fora. A inflação vai
So
subir
the
muito,
crisis,
vai ter recessão,
inflation
o
will
sistema
grow, will
político vai
have
continuar
recession,
sob pressão.
political system will be
Vai ser bem
under
diferente
pressure,
do que foram os últimos 10,
and
15,
it will
20
be
anos lá
very
fora,
different
de
from
prosperidade,
the
de todo
last
mundo,
10,
muito
20
investimento.
years abroad, with
É o
lots of
contrário.
investment.
Vai ter inflação, Federal Reserve subindo
We'll
os
have
juros, as
inflation.
bolsas caindo.
Federal Reserve
Muita crise,
is
muita
growing
dificuldade lá
the
fora.
interest,
Agora, ao mesmo tempo, tem uma
and
oportunidade.
at the same time, there's
Nós
an
escutamos
opportunity.
a secretária do Tesouro americana, Yellen,
We heard
agora,
the
20,
National
30 dias
Treasury
atrás, em
Secretary
Washington,
of the
dizendo o
U.S. and
a partir de
today,
agora existem dois grandes
she said,
requisitos para os investimentos
from
internacionais.
now on, there's two requisites
primeiro
for international
É um
investment. The
requisito,
first
uma
one
exigência
is
logística. Não adianta a
logistic
gente fazer
requirement.
semi-manufaturados em Taiwan,
You can't simply
se amanhã a China
have a
tomar
plant in Taiwan
bloquear o
and
Pacífico
maybe
Sul.
tomorrow China will
Nós
invade Taiwan.
precisamos, do ponto de vista de exigência
We
logística,
need
que os investimentos estejam próximos.
We
É o
need to consider
nearshoring. Tem que estar perto da gente.
this, that the supply
Agora,
needs to
estar
be
perto
close.
só não é suficiente. Por exemplo, a Rússia está
And
bem
this is not
pertinho da
enough.
Europa. E não resolve o problema da Europa, porque 40%
And
da energia
this doesn't solve
está agora sob
agribusiness
pressão,
because
além
now
dos
energy
alimentos.
is under pressure.
Então, tem que estar perto,
So it
mas
needs
tem
to
a
be
segunda
close,
exigência. Tem que ser
and
amigo.
there's a lot of requirements.
Friendshoring.
You need to be a
Tem que estar perto,
friend.
exigência logística.
There's a
Tem que ser
requirement
amigo,
on friendship.
exigência
There's the logistical
geopolítica.
requirement and
Aí
geopolitical
nós estamos falando do Brasil.
requirement. And
Quem é que está
so
pertinho e é
we
amigo?
we're talking about Brazil,
Tanto da Europa,
who is a good
quanto da
friend
América,
and is
quanto
close.
da China, quanto da
We're
Rússia. O
good
Brasil
friends
dança com
with
todo
America,
mundo, desde que o governo Bolsonaro entrou,
Latin America,
falou isso.
Asia.
Nós estamos aqui para
We're
recuperar
here
o tempo
to
perdido, queremos
recover
recuperar o caminho da
the time
prosperidade.
we have lost, to
Entramos e
recover
fizemos logo acordo
prosperity.
Mercosul, acordo
We
União
have
Europeia, acordo do
Mercosur,
EFTA, European Free
we
Trade
have
Area,
NAFTA
estamos entrando na
agreements.
OCDE.
We're
Em todas
growing
as
at
dimensões, se você pegar uma economia, ela se move em RN, né? Um espaço n-dimensional.
And
Qualquer
it's a
dimensão que você olhar, nós
space
estamos
and
andando para frente.
space we're growing.
Privatizações. Fizemos a
We
Eletrobras semana
have
passada.
privatization.
Fizemos o Porto de Vitória um pouco antes,
We
vamos
have
fazer
Vitória
o Porto de Santos
Port.
logo depois.
We're
Estamos nos
going
movendo para frente.
moving forward on
Impostos.
Santos Port.
O presidente disse,
About
vamos reduzir os
taxation.
impostos, vamos simplificar e reduzir.
Let's simplify.
Aprovamos ontem no Senado
Let's reduce. We approved
a redução
yesterday
do ICMS.
the
Já
reduction of
tínhamos feito a
ICMS.
redução dos IPIs. Quando você
We had the
reduz os
reduction.
IPIs e o
We
ICMS,
agreed on
você
reducing
está
IPI,
dando uma margem de folga.
and when we
Mesmo
do
que
that,
os custos
we have
subam, você tem uma margem de folga
maneuver
para não
area
ficar reajustando o preço
to
toda hora.
avoid
Nesse sentido que eu falei, não tem nada a ver com
increasing
tabelamento,
prices
é
so
patético.
much.
Tem pessoas
It's
que
pathetic to do
ressuscitam
that.
seus próprios
There's
fantasmas
people who
das próprias tolices que fizeram no passado.
recall
Quem
old
congelou o
ghosts
preço lá
from
no
the
passado
past.
tem esse
You know,
fantasma na cabeça, né, pelo
we have
desastre
this
que causou
kind
na
of
economia
ghost
brasileira.
in our
Então, quando
minds.
você faz uma coisa completamente diferente, que é o
And
seguinte,
when you do something
reduzimos os
completely
impostos,
different,
reduzimos a
reducing
cunha fiscal.
tax, for example,
mesmo que os custos subam,
even
como caíram
if
os
the
impostos,
costs
você
are
pode ficar
rising,
tempo sem
the
remarcar o
tax,
preço. Ponto.
the tax
Voluntário.
are
Se
being
quiser
reduced.
fazer,
We
se não
don't
quiser,
have
se dane.
to
Aumenta o preço e o
increase
consumidor sai
prices.
perto. Então, nós estamos em todas as dimensões.
And
se
so,
você
in
olhar,
all
acordos
dimensions you
internacionais,
look at,
progredimos. Privatizações, progredimos.
privatization, we
Redução de
grow,
impostos, progredimos.
reducing taxes, we increased.
A transformação dos bancos públicos.
And
O BNDES
public bank
fazendo
privatization,
hoje uma
BNDES,
plataforma de, por exemplo,
has a
saneamento,
platform in
reestruturando finanças do
sanitation
Estado. Fizemos a reforma dos
for
marcos
states.
regulatórios, temos
We
mais de
have
800 bilhões de reais vindo em
reform of the
investimentos privados.
state frameworks.
O crescimento do Brasil está garantido para os próximos
Brazil's
anos.
growth is
Nós estamos
guaranteed
numa
for next
transição
years. We are in
de uma
a
economia que
transition
era dirigida
of
por mercado,
economy
o
that
mercado
was
quebrou,
oriented
o
towards the
governo
market, and the
quebrou
market broke the
nas
government.
últimas
The government
administrações
broke in
financeiramente
the last
irresponsáveis,
administrations
sem capacidade
without
técnica de fazer a coisa
technical
certa,
capacity
destruíram 3
to
milhões de
do the right
empregos em
thing.
2 anos, por exemplo,
They
enquanto nós
lost
criamos
2
12
million
milhões de empregos desde o fundo do poço até agora,
employments,
em um ano e meio.
and we have
Agora,
created
nós estamos
1.5
sob
million
ventos
employments
turbulentos.
so
Então, a minha
far.
primeira observação,
So my
eu
first
termino
observation,
por aqui, é
my first
a
point is
observação de
this,
que lá fora
that
o mar é turbulento
even
e
though
vai
outside
piorar. Agora vamos
we
pular
have
no bom, que é o Brasil.
shaken world,
O Brasil é a maior
we will
fronteira de
remain
investimentos
steady.
aberta no mundo hoje.
Brazil
A
is the
reforma dos marcos regulatórios
most open,
nos
most
permite
open,
agora
the country
ampliar
most open
o que já
towards
era,
investments
já
today.
estava acontecendo naturalmente, uma retomada gradual do
We
investimento
are
privado.
naturally growing
Agora virou uma
and
avalanche,
regaining
800
our
bilhões.
growth,
Nós nunca tivemos um
and there's
compromisso dessa
avalanche
ordem de magnitude
of
para os
investments
próximos anos,
coming in.
e isso garante o crescimento
And
da
this
economia
guarantees
brasileira. Tanto que o
the
que nós observamos hoje,
growth
com o
of our
crescimento, eu
economy.
disse que iam ficar revendo o crescimento lá
And
fora para
they
baixo,
say they
o ano
would
inteiro,
review
e revendo do Brasil para
investments
cima. Então, no final do ano passado,
down,
o Brasil ia
but
ter
they
uma
would
recessão de
review
1,5%.
investments in Brazil up.
Era a estimativa
And so estimates
usual, padrão, era entre 1 de queda,
for
1,5%. Bom, já
one-
reviram para menos meio, para zero, para mais
1.5%
meio, para mais já estão indo para
down.
1,5%.
But now they're
Da mesma
reviewing that
forma, as
up.
estimativas lá fora eram de 4,
So
4,5%,
the estimates
5% de
outside
crescimento.
is
Já fizeram a revisão
4,
para 4, para
4.5.
3, para 2, já estão falando em recessão.
And now they're
Na
talking
Europa
about
e nos
recession
Estados Unidos.
all
Eu
over
não
the
tenho a menor
world.
dúvida que vem uma recessão na Europa e nos Estados Unidos.
I have no
Não tenho a menor
doubt that
dúvida,
US
por uma razão muito
will
simples.
face
Eles
a
mesmos já
recession.
sabiam, quando
They
fomos a
knew
Davos em 2019, eles mesmos
In
já diziam,
2020,
nós
2019,
estamos num synchronized deceleration. Nós estamos descendo,
They said they were
tentando
in a
pouso
synchronized
suave. Eles estavam já tentando
deceleration.
pouso suave. Quando veio o Covid,
They were looking
e
for a
quando
soft
veio, que é um
landing.
choque adverso de oferta, e quando veio a guerra da Rússia com a Ucrânia.
So when the pandemic hit, this got deeper, and invasion of Ukraine even deeper, and they have no more alternatives.
Hard landing.
Now it's a hard landing.
Turbulenta, vai voar
It's
asa para
turbulent.
pedaço, asa para outro pedaço, já vai dar
Wing
errado.
going one way, wing
Enquanto
going
isso,
another
você tem o
way.
Brasil ao contrário.
And Brazil is
Começando a
on the
decolagem
opposite
de novo.
side.
Nós já estamos
We're,
decolando, quando o Covid pegou. Nós caímos menos, voltamos mais
We're
rápido
taking
e
off.
fizemos reformas.
We were taking off, and we're taking
Durante
off even
a crise.
harder now.
O Banco Central independente, para
Central,
garantir que a
independent
inflação
central
vai
bank
estar
to
sob
guarantee
controle, os marcos
economic
regulatórios
policies,
para expandir os investimentos, os acordos comerciais. Então,
regulatory
o Brasil hoje
framework,
foi citado lá fora,
reform,
na mídia lá de fora, como um exemplo de combate à inflação, porque, ao contrário
and
dos outros que estão
fighting
fechando e se protegendo, o Brasil está
our struggle
abrindo
against
a fronteira
inflation,
e
and
dizendo,
Brazil
"Ei,
is opening the
comece a entrar."
frontiers,
Mas tudo
saying,
muito
"Come in,"
cuidadosamente, porque nós somos liberais, mas não somos trouxas.
but do it
Nós não
the
vamos,
right way.
enquanto
We're
não
liberals, but we're not
completarmos a
fools.
nossa reforma tributária,
When we complete
aumentarmos a
our tax
competitividade da
reform
indústria brasileira,
and
nós não
increase
podemos abrir
Brazilian
tudo ao
industry
mesmo tempo.
competitiveness,
Então,
we're
tem
not
dois
opening
sinais
to
muito
all,
claros
but
que eu
there's
acho que vão
two
ser
very clear signs
o
here.
desenho da reindustrialização
That will be
brasileira para o
the
futuro. E, ao
Design
mesmo
of
tempo, a
Brazilian
reinserção
economy
do
for the
Brasil
future, and
na
at the same
cadeia
time,
global, quando está
the
sendo feita essa
reinsertion of Brazil
reconfiguração
in the global economy.
das cadeias de valor. E nós estamos falando de segurança energética
And we're talking
e
about
de segurança alimentar. Então, o
and
Brasil é um
energy
gigante
security
verde.
and food
É a matriz
security.
energética mais limpa,
Brazil
mais
is a
diversificada
giant.
do mundo.
We are the most
E
diverse.
depois de
We have the most
muita
diverse energy matrix in the world.
conversa que transbordou, luta
And,
política interna que transbordou lá para
The
fora.
conversation that has been
atrapalhou
overflown
a nossa
out
imagem
abroad,
lá fora,
that is
a
the
verdade
political fight,
brasileira está emergindo.
political battle.
Quer dizer, o presidente sempre
The
insistiu
truth
nisso,
is that
quer dizer,
our
primeiro, o
president
presidente já foi
always
eleito
insisted on this.
numa economia
First
que
of
é a
all,
quarta economia com a maior penetração
was
digital.
elected
Então, o Brasil
in
já é um gigante
the
digital.
fourth biggest
Ao mesmo tempo,
economy
fizemos a
in
nossa
penetration,
renovação agora do marco
and at the same time
regulatório
we
com
had
5G.
our reform,
Do outro
or
ponto de
we
vista também, que é
approved
a
the
segurança
5G
alimentar e
framework.
energética, o que acontece com o Brasil é
And we
que
also have the
a Europa
food
olha
security
para o
issue.
Brasil como a
Europe
segurança energética.
looks to us
e a Ásia
as
olha para o Brasil
security
como segurança
energy.
alimentar.
And Asia
Organização
looks to
Mundial do
Brazil
Comércio
as food
diz que o Brasil
security.
é a reserva alimentar do mundo. O
So
nunca
Brazil
passaria
is the
fome se não
food
fosse
reserve of the
a
world.
velocidade com que o presidente Bolsonaro, inclusive,
If,
está reagindo à crise. Não
if we
só com a política interna, mas também
could
com os
have
acertos
worked
externos,
with the
buscar fertilizante. 85%
speediness
do
that the
fertilizante
President
nosso era
Bolsonaro
importado. Ele foi
asked
lá,
us
fechou
to.
acordo, trouxe
We had
26 navios,
came
700
into agreements
toneladas
with
de fertilizantes para o ano que vem. Já
with
garantiu
different countries. We brought
toda
in
a renovação da safra nossa que vem por aí.
tens
Então,
of
o
tons
governo
of
brasileiro está agindo com muita
fertilizers
velocidade,
to
está
Brazil to
reagindo à
guarantee the
crise,
production.
E abriu-se agora um horizonte
And we
que é
open now
justamente
an
um
horizon
espaço para a energia eólica
which
e principalmente para a
has
produção de
space
hidrogênio
for
verde no futuro,
wind
que parece
energy
ser
and
o combustível do futuro, né? Quer dizer, a energia
ESG,
do futuro, vamos botar assim.
solar
E já há
energy.
planos dizem que no
And there are
Nordeste
plans
brasileiro
that
nós
in
podemos fazer
Brazilian
entre
Northeast
10
we
e
could
50.
have some between 10 and
Itaipus.
50 Itaipu power plants.
Esse é o discurso do
Yeah,
presidente. Eu
this
fico
is
por aqui, então.
this is
Eu
President
fico por aqui
Bolsonaro's
dizendo o
speech.
seguinte.
So I leave
O
you with
Brasil
this.
é o lugar.
Brazil
O Brasil é o lugar para
is
estar
the
agora.
place
É
to
onde
be
tudo
today.
vai acontecer.
It is
Eles
where
estão
everything is
sincronizados
going to
descendo,
happen.
Nós estamos começando a decolar.
They're in the
Então, vamos lá,
synchronized landing. We're taking off. So, President Bolsonaro, it's with you now.
Senhoras e senhores, nós
Ladies
agradecemos
and
então as
gentlemen,
palavras do
so we
ministro
thank
Paulo
the
Guedes
words
e agora
of Minister Paulo
convidamos
Guedes,
o
and now we
excelentíssimo senhor
invite our
presidente
Excellence,
da República
President of
Federativa
the
do Brasil, Jair
Federative Republic
Bolsonaro,
of Brazil,
para que faça
Jair
o seu
Bolsonaro,
pronunciamento.
to have his speech.
Mudaram a ordem.
Senhoras e senhores, bom dia.
Good morning, ladies and
É
gentlemen.
difícil falar depois do
It is
Paulo
always
Guedes,
hard
ainda mais quando ele fala
To
bastante.
speak after Guedes, especially
Sobra
when he
pouco para
speaks
mim.
quite a bit. There's very little I could probably add at this
Vai
point.
dizer a vocês
Nevertheless, may I say to all
Eu
of
não vou
you,
citar o nome do país.
and I won't name the country,
Aqui
by
na
the way,
América do Sul nós temos mais
but
à
the fact is that
esquerda,
in South
pouquinho, né,
America we
mais ao
have
oeste.
more or less to the
comprido.
left of the region, we have this long
Não basta você ter
country,
30 anos
geographically speaking.
de crescimento
It
médio
is not
acima
enough
de
to have
5%.
30 years of average growth
Da
above
política lá na frente
5%, where later
redireciona
on
esse
in
crescimento.
politics you end up redirecting
Não basta ser lá no
that
norte, lá em cima,
pathway and trend.
o
It
país
is not enough to
que
be
tem a maior reserva de petróleo
way
do
up
mundo
north, as is the case of the country
A
endowed with the
população
world's largest oil
fugir
deposits.
para
It
paraíso.
is, or it serves no purpose whatsoever
Que
for
para
the
eles é
population to
o estado de
flee
Roraima.
to a paradise,
E
as
a
is the
política
case
interferindo
with
pelo lado
the
negativo.
population emigrating into
Aqui
the
mais à
northern state
esquerda,
of
o voto foi
Roraima.
no
That's
papel.
politics, of course, interfering in a negative manner.
Todos
And
são escravos.
more towards the northern
pelas
portion of
suas
the country, we
decisões.
see
Mas
the
ao
same
norte,
trend.
o voto
I mean,
eletrônico.
everyone becomes a slave to one's own decision. And
Fica
way
a
up north, you have,
interrogação.
of course, electronic voting
Aqui mais
systems.
ao sul,
And
o
a
outro
question
país
mark hovers over such
também
systems.
que, não vou dizer o
In
nome,
the
mas
South American
rivaliza
cone,
conosco, em
I
especial no
will not
futebol.
name the country, but it is one country that
E a
has
gente vê as
historically been a
dificuldades que esse
rival
país está passando.
in the soccer arenas, if you
Seria
will, with
muito
Brazil.
bom pra
And
nós
we all witness all
esses
these
três
challenges and
países,
difficulties that country has been going
mas
on.
8
It'd be
que
very
fazem
good if
divisa
those three
conosco
countries, plus the 8 with which we have
fossem
geopolitical
prósperos.
borders, if they would also be
Mas
in
tem aqui
a
no-
prosperity
na América do
pathway.
Sul,
But the fact is, nevertheless, that
parece uma cabeça de burro, né?
South America seems to
Força
be
A gente
guided by
do lado
unknown forces
esquerdo.
that ultimately tend to move the continent to the
Se vocês
left
fossem analisar o
wing.
meu governo,
Now, if one
não vou nem
reviews
falar das condições
my
como eu cheguei.
administration, I won't even talk about the conditions that prevailed when I took office. I mean, it was really a miracle, a God-given miracle. I mean, I was almost
Partido
stabbed
muito pequeno,
to death,
era acusado de
a small
tudo,
party, and charged with all kinds of
e vencemos.
things and lies. And we proved
Queria que tivesse
to
mais
be
tempo para falar como vencemos.
the winning candidate. I wish I had more time to
coisa
explain
é
why and how we
simplesmente
won. I
de
mean,
aterrorizar
the
qualquer
how, would make
Eu entendo que,
any of you
Marco
appalled.
Feliciano,
I understand,
momento que a
Feliciano,
mão de Deus
that it
foi
was
colocada
truly
sobre o
a
Brasil.
point in time where God's hand was
Tem
placed
gente
upon this
melhor do
country.
que eu, tem
Are there
milhares de
people who are better
pessoas
than I?
melhores do
Yes,
que
there are thousands of people out there who are
Mas
better than I
eleição
am.
para
True.
presidente, em
However,
especial,
when it
é
comes to
self-service.
the presidential election
que tem
in
na
particular,
mesa.
it's pretty much like a self-service
Não adianta
restaurant. I mean, you
pedir
get
camarão
what
se
you
não tem
have. I mean,
camarão.
it
Aqui
is
é
pointless to
cordeiro
ask
se
for
não tem
cod
cordeiro. É o
or
que tá na
shrimp if
mesa.
there is no cod or shrimp, or if all you
E às
have
vezes
is
eles estão na
lamb.
mesa, você vai ter
So
que
you
comer.
take whatever is available
escolher
on
o
that
melhor
self-service
ou o menos
restaurant.
ruim.
So you need to choose the best
E assim foi
available
feito
choice or the
em
least
2018.
bad,
Eu
if you will,
ganhei no primeiro
second to
turno.
last, if you will.
Mas não vou
And
entrar
that's
em
what
detalhe.
happened. In 2018, I won and did so in the first round of the
Assumimos o
presidential
governo.
elections. Won't go into
Um outro
details.
milagre.
We did take
Escolhi
office
ministros, eu
as
escolhi meus
was
ministros.
not really the case. In
Coisa
yet
que
another
era
miracle,
feita
I
por
chose my own
partidos
cabinet
políticos.
ministers
E
myself,
descobri que, além de
which up until
partidos
then
políticos,
was
o
determined
outro
by
poder
political
também
parties.
escolhia
And I
estatal.
found out that there was yet another third party
escolhi.
involved in choosing state-owned or
E eu
leaders
quero que
of
vocês
state-owned
analisem o perfil dos 22
enterprises, or the
titulares, eu vou ter
SOEs.
23,
And I would request
compare
you
com os
to
demais.
kindly review the, say, technical profile of my
Quando aqui
22 plus cabinet
se
ministers
falou
and
que o
compare them
Tarcísio
vis-a-vis
disse
the other
que o Brasil
ministers.
está
I mean,
condenado a dar certo, é por
Tarcísio,
causa disso.
former Minister of Infrastructure Tarcísio, said that
Paulo
Brazil
Guedes,
is
você falou em
doomed
Banco
to
Central Independente.
be successful.
Na delação
He's
do
right.
Palocci,
I mean,
que tá aí
Paulo
no
Guedes said
YouTube,
something
vejo antes
about the
que
current state of affairs. I mean,
cara
former
resolva bloquear tudo
Minister
isso aí, é o
Pelosi's
dono da verdade e dono da
testimonial,
nossa liberdade. Parece que
he
esse é o destino dele. Ele diz que tudo
admitted
foi aparelhado no Brasil,
to the
exceto
fact that
o Banco
everything
Central.
was weaponized in Brazil, except for the central bank. Everything was pretty
Ele
much
que disse.
instrumentalized by
O
the
próprio ministro
then
Fux,
left-wing
essa
government.
semana,
Chief Justice at the
libertaram
Federal Supreme
aquele
Court
cara,
himself, Fuchs,
numa
said
questão
that
formal,
that
mas
former
a
prisoner,
roubalheira
former president,
existiu.
was
As malas eram verdadeiras.
freed from jail, yes, formally, but the bags of
Presidente
money were all there. I mean,
Como é que
it
você
all
se sente
happened.
no
You know,
BNDES,
President
onde eu
Montezano,
não
how
impus
do you
nenhum diretor
feel
pra
working
você?
at BNDES, Brazil's Social
Qualquer
Development
coisa
Bank,
certa ou errada,
where I have have not imposed top-down any director to work with you. I mean, whatever may be going wrong, we'll get together and talk about it. Pedro, at the Federal Savings Banks, what about the directors you had at the Federal Savings Bank? They were all kind of apportioned and allotted among government leaders or political parties. And they would shift the leadership positions to those that would serve interests of political parties. Opinion polls financed by certain institutions, of course, would lead to the desired outcomes. I mean, look at the losses incurred in the past vis-a-vis the profits incurred in the present. More than 110 billion Brazilian reais. The difference. Do I know anything about the economy? I don't. Do I know anything about infrastructure or healthcare? I do not. I'm just the soccer team coach. I don't need to train my sportsmen to master the techniques. I mean, they're the ones who master the techniques, and they're the ones who will ultimately determine where to kick the ball to make sure a goal is scored. In the past, when there was a competition among political parties to choose the ministers and ultimately weaken ministries and state-old banks, I mean, the soccer team was totally unable to win the match. And some people seem to be willing to go back to that kind of old-school practice. Of course, at stake is something that is even more important than your own lives, and that is freedom. We cannot possibly admit in this country that the Speaker of the House or the President of the Senate or even the President of the Republic or the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court or any other members of these branches of power exert absolute power. I want this, I do not want, I send such and such person to the jail, I will sue such and such person, I will open up a lawsuit. Forget the public prosecutor's office. What is ultimately at stake here, ladies and gentlemen? I just, mentioned a westernmost long country in South America, and even way up north in the America, we've seen odd things happen, haven't we? I mean, initiatives aimed at disarming the population. I mean, all dictatorships in history have been preceded by efforts to disarm the population. What we currently experience is very aptly mentioned by Minister of Finance Paulo Guedes, is pretty much a problem experienced by the whole world. The inflation spiral in food, energy, fuels, etc. I mean, those leaders who determined that people should stay at home and the economy would be taken care of later. I mean, I didn't do that. It was a regrettable decision made by the Federal Supreme Court, depriving me from the possibility of actually leading the pandemic-related issues. I was placed in a position to do nothing but just a lot budget appropriations. I mean, certain states were free to, of course, take more stringent or less strict measures on a case-by-case basis. And I wanted to, of course, preserve jobs. And a clear-cut example would be as follows. I did do my part, for example, when universities shut down all over Brazil. I said with the Agulhas Negras military academy and the naval as well as the Air Force Academy shall not shut down. What if anyone dies? I said, well, it's my problem. I'll be answerable or held accountable. No one died. I mean, being the leader of the executive branch is all about making decisions. You may make decisions, mistaken decisions at times, but you cannot always make wrong decisions. I can perhaps be described as the world's only head of state who was against the lockdown policy during COVID. I could not or wasn't able to actually enforce that view, however, because I have always said, as in the Bible, there's a passage that says, due to lack of knowledge, my people has perished. So I could not really enforce my will because people were unable to understand. There was not enough knowledge, if you will, out there. And they do realize what happened today. People do have the knowledge today. Many people who have even been vaccinated ultimately contract the virus and die, as was the case of Brazilian singer Aguinaldo Timóteo, among so many others. I mean, I won't go into details, but it did affect the Brazilian economy. I mean, the war going on 10,000 kilometers away also does affect our economy at the domestic level. Some people seem willing to have me decide problems that are going on all over the world. I have enough problems in Brazil already. If I could decree peace to the world, I would do so. But I cannot be arrogant, that arrogant. I mean, it's good for you to enjoy media visibility. But that would certainly lead our agribusiness to collapse. Many people describe our agribusiness as being perfect. It is not, because we are very much reliant on fertilizers. We depend on fertilizers. And we went out there and negotiated and solved the issue. The WTO Director General talked to me some 2 months ago, and as she walked out of the meeting, and she told me and the world that without Brazil, the world would starve. I was highly criticized by the press, by the media, when I traveled to Russia to talk to President Putin. Of course, I am for peace. I mean, we have 600,000 Ukrainian nationals living in Paraná today, but I happen to be the president of Brazil. In my recent meetings with President Joe Biden in the U.S., there was an expanded bilateral meeting with about 20 people, 10 on each side. President Biden started talking about things. I mean, there should be no secret whatsoever. There were only 20 people. And he said, we want to help Brazil preserve the Amazon. But I must say that we have destroyed North America, said Biden. I mean, honestly speaking, I wouldn't tell him, what about California? Has it caught fire again? Because when, we see a little fire outbreak in the Brazilian wetlands or around the Amazon region, the world strongly criticizes me. Why is there so much interest out there in the world? Well, due to sheer economic interest on the part of a large country in Europe whose president has just recently been re-elected. And I mean, they have their own agricultural commodities to export. And of course, they want to avoid competition from Brazil. They want to sideline us as much as they can. But now with the war, and since Ukraine is now exporting way less, and with the gas crisis at their footstep or doorstep, all of Europe has started to change their environmental legislation. I mean, there's no fallow land anymore in Europe. They're planting everywhere. And when you travel to Europe or to the United States, I mean, just look down below the airplane. I mean, when you look at the rivers, there is no riverside vegetation whatsoever, no riparian vegetation to be seen. We, in Brazil, we do preserve our forests. I mean, 2/3 of the Brazilian vegetation remains pristine, untouched, just as was the case back in the 1500s when Portuguese discoverer Cabral came here. And the Amazon was already there, of course, even prior to the discovery in the 1500s. I mean, when does the Tordesillas Treaty date back to? 1494. What was there to the west? Nothing but the Amazon region, of course. And whether it was a coincidence or not, I do not know, but the fact is, it is an amazing, wonderful region. Twice its sovereignty was discussed on more relative terms, and President Putin said that he wouldn't accept that. He had veto power. He confirmed that it is Brazil's say and sovereignty over the Amazon region. So what side are you on? I am on Brazil's side. Of course, the economy is extremely important. We have a capable minister such as Guedes at the helm of this team, the economy team. The economy team overcame the pandemic and ensured that between 2020 and 2021, this country had a positive balance of 3 million new jobs, whereas back in 2014, 2015, without any pandemic whatsoever, we incurred a loss of 3 million job posts. I mean, compare the situation today, Minister Fakchida. I mean, you worked with Guedes. I mean, consider how long it takes to open a new business in Brazil. Less than 2 days. I mean, look at what the situation was like at the end of the Temer, Dilma, and the Fernando Cardoso administrations. I mean, it used to take up to 200 days on end to open a business because there was no interest in helping the business community. Very often, politicians take pleasure in making sure that the business community remains dependent on politicians. Come and bow down, knee down before me, and I will help you. Very common in previous administrations, not the case under my administration. On my part, especially considering the economic team, we don't really make a point of talking to you. I mean, of course, if you're willing to talk to us, wonderful, but the fact is that we do not want to raise hurdles to you. We don't want to raise barriers to then sell solutions to you. I mean, 3.5 years plus without any corruption episode whatsoever. This is not something I would describe as a virtue itself. It's just my obligation, you know. And if corruption surfaces, we will certainly go after it and cast a light on it, see whether a cabinet minister or a secretary has engaged in wrongdoing. And if so, they will be held accountable. Things are different today. And why is that so? Well, because of the highly skilled team of cabinet ministers we have. I mean, compare Paulo Guedes vis-à-vis the prisoner who preceded him in office. Compare Tarcísio vis-à-vis those drunkards who worked before him. Compare Marcos Pontes, who didn't even know the difference between the force of gravity and the force of pregnancy, if you understand the metaphor. A pun in Portuguese, adds the interpreter. I mean, no comparison whatsoever. I mean, compare the governors of our official banks or presidents of our state-owned banks vis-à-vis the former holders of those positions. I mean, take a look at the Itaipu Binational Power Plant. The top director of that plant is here, an admiral. I mean, in the past, the Itaipu plant would only be called to mind because it produced energy. I mean, some 2-3 months from now, we will be completing the second bridge between Brazil and Paraguay. A wonderful bridge. How long is it, by the way? 497 meter long is the bridge. Thank you, Admiral, for that piece of info. I mean, look at the Foz do Iguaçu airport, how big it is. I mean, international flights can land there. In the past, they would land in Argentina and, of course, use the Argentinian hotel network. They can land in Brazil now. Governor of Paraná, Ratinho, knows all too well that his best secretary is Admiral Ridney, who is in charge of the binational Itaipu power plant. They cover about 40 different municipalities around the Itaipu River Basin. We're just now completing negotiating efforts with President Marito, our former secretary and still secretary in practice, because he still remains pretty active, and we will be able to ensure fish farming along or around the Itaipu Lake, thereby boosting by 40% the overall fishing throughput in Brazil. This country is proving very successful. Very people know about it, and very people even know that about 2 weeks ago we were champions. Brazil came out #1 as part of a student championship attended by 21 different countries. What about sports in the past? Well, sports were marked by a lot of corruption in the past. I mean, all of these things, you know, all of these comparison factors. I believe you should all stop and compare the current state of affairs vis-à-vis the past. The indebtedness level in the Brazilian state-owned oil company, Petrobras, under the Workers' Party administration, was enough to build 60 water transposition public works in the San Francisco River. Just recently, what would be a refinery plant has been updated. The cost has been updated to up to 47 billion Brazilian reals, who were embezzled or buried away. Enough to, you know, redo the San Francisco River transposition works 3 times. I mean, take a look at the landless people movement invasions. No one hears about them anymore. And that's not due to violence, but rather because of the provisional or definitive title deeds that have been issued to the settled population. We want to get up to 400,000 people this year. Guedes will make sure he gets additional budget appropriations from the ministry. And this is how we have been working to smoothly solve problems as best we can. At first, I approached then Minister of Environment, Salles, and said, hey, the number of fines out in the countryside is huge, and they found out that the money would flow into Brazil's Environmental Protection Agency, IBAMA, and Salles acted, we managed to lower, you know, fines by up to 30% out in the countryside. Furthermore, by working with the Brazilian Congress, we ensured extended length of possession time for people who carry or possess weapons. Today, farmers are able to carry a weapon and ride around their own rural property. And they can even use a 7.62 weapon if thus enabled. There are hillsides in Rio de Janeiro slums where the police says one cannot go in, but places fraught with rifles. It's a refuge for the crooks. Congratulations, Chief Justice Saquin. You're tremendously cooperating to drug trafficking and to the crooks and bandits at large, the criminals, the criminal gangs active in Rio. Is that a lie? Is that fake news? Or is it not? It is true. Can we not criticize rulings by the Chief Justice? Of course we can. Who do they think they are? They wanted to establish a new time frame governing the demarcation of indigenous lands. Back in 1988, it was decided that
até aquele momento,
up until then, the 1988 time frame,
indígenas,
wherever indigenous people lived, they would be recognized as such official lands. Whereas Chief Justice Fachin decided, no, if an indigenous person happens to wake up in the morning here on this land, this can become an indigenous land officially. The southeastern region, by comparison, the size thereof is already demarcated as indigenous land, and if more is passed as indigenous land, the whole southern region would be ultimately demarcated or allotted to indigenous land by comparison. We would have to allot even further areas as big as the state of São Paulo. That would be the end of agribusiness. That would be the end to food security aspirations. Once the Supreme Court makes such a decision and lays down a ruling, I mean, I would easily call upon the Chief Justice and give them the key to manage this country. It would be unmanageable. This is true. I mean, we are tired of baloney and demagoguery in Brazilian politics who say embellished rhetoric to you, but do something else when they turn their backs to you. Even my wife has been sued because she said something about Mother's Day on the evening event. I mean, what do people want from Brazil? I mean, we know quite a few people have power in their hands, but not everyone has all power. Why is it that if you cast light on the electronic voting system, why should your candidacy be quashed and cancelled? Of course, I can showcase and flag out any flaws, as was the case in 2014. Technically speaking, I thought former candidate Aécio Neves won. I mean, even based on the documentation from the Electoral Supreme Court, I mean, I can state such facts. I mean, I cannot have my term in office cancelled or quashed. I mean, we are all law-abiding citizens. We wish peace and prosperity, but countries more to the left, I mean, that country has all going for its economy, doing pretty well indeed, and no one possibly expect that what is now going on there to happen. What about this country, Brazil? Are we going to take the same side? Are we going to move in the same direction? Chief Justice Fachin is precisely the Chief Justice who freed former President Lula. I mean, he met with about 70 ambassadors a few weeks ago. Is it fair for him to meet with about 70 ambassadors and even indirectly tell them that I am undermining democracy in Brazil? And at the end of the tallying of votes in the first round, make sure you ask your respective heads of state to immediately recognize the outcome of the elections.
E a pesquisa, o Datafolha, é que vai validar o nome de quem vai ser votado, o tempo que ganha a eleição.
Are opinion polls going to ultimately validate the electoral results? Absolutely not. I mean, I date back to the time when votes were tallied manually, and you had people overseeing the tallying of votes. I'm not afraid. Of course, I'm totally for democracy, totally for freedom, and I want things to go well. And I'm saying this in advance because why is that Chief Justice Fachin went into the House of Representatives last year, met with 11 party leaders, and the following day, the members of the special committee to review, the printed paper-based vote ended up changing their members in the committee, and then we lost the vote. I mean, it was sent to the plenary for a vote. I mean, we did not get enough votes to pass the proposal. That is interference. Do you need more signals of what may possibly happen in Brazil as a result of this undue interference? I have invited the armed forces to be part and parcel of an electoral transparency committee, and the armed forces have pinpointed more than 500 sources or points of vulnerability. Can you imagine? They then submitted about 10 suggestions, and then the Supreme Court says, well, we don't want to talk about this anymore because the elections are not about the armed forces. So what are the elections for? Is it just for sheer formality? A former Minister of Defense was invited to join that committee. He did not accept. So Does anyone really honestly believe that the other side, you already know the other side, I mean, not from today or yesterday, but from the past 14 years. I mean, the candidate has indicated that they will undo the workers' labor legislation that was established under the Temer administration in 2017. He's going to appreciate the value and role of the Brazilian Development Bank, and that the federal government will keep on providing loans to Venezuela, Cuba, and so many other dictatorships worldwide. They also said that they would disarm law-abiding citizens, and that they will turn private property into a relative, or private ownership into a relative fact. They openly talk about allowing abortion as if it were comparable to extracting a tooth, as if it were a minor procedure. He has also said that he wants to see one and only South America, a broad-ranging Bolivarian homeland, a central bank governing all of South America. He has also indicated that he will promote his army generals based on democratic criteria. If they don't say, "Hail Lula, hail Chavez," would not be provoked, and that he would put an end to military schools and civic and military school networks. What can we realistically expect from such a candidate? I mean, who is going to be there to tally the votes? I mean, there are many people who are knowledgeable about information technology here. I mean, who can actually provide you with the peace of mind that we can trust the information technology system used in the presidential elections? We already see businessmen and women coming to Brazil indicating that they will only materialize their business intentions in Brazil following the elections because they are uncertain about what may happen in the October elections. Today we have an administration, you may not agree with it, but it is an administration that believes in God, and we do believe in God. Of course, it is your right not to believe in God, but it is a government that respects its armed forces and its police officers. We respect the Brazilian family. We are not for gender ideology. We do not want our children or grandchildren who are 6 years old today to be precociously or somehow sexualized or exposed to sex issues in the classroom setting. I may not know the right path to success, but I know precisely what the path to fiasco is. My memory is perhaps not good enough to call to mind things that happened 50 years ago, but I do very clearly remember what happened and what I experienced in this country in the past 20 years. I know everything I have gone through before I got here. It was not the result of any personal obsession or any personal obsession. I decided to run for the presidency because I got tired of being a member of the House, the lower house of Parliament. And of course, I wanted to have an honorable exit. There's a video clip, featuring me addressing the cadets, indicating what was likely to happen between then and 2014, even an attempt. I do not have a crystal ball, but I am all too aware of who is on the other side. Why is it that the Adélio case has never been solved? Adélio being the person who stabbed me. I mean, there are lawyers, attorneys in Juiz de Fora. One person came to the House of Representatives using Adélio's document to have some kind of alibi in case he managed to flee the scene where he was caught red-handed in the stabbing episode against me. I mean, why was none of that ever clarified or enlightened? I mean, lots of interference, undue interference, a great deal of interference, including involving the Federal Police Decree in November 2018, which began to look into all of these issues have to go side by side with the economic agenda, otherwise you can enjoy no peace of mind. Now, why do we have about 15 ambassadors here? Well, because there's a great interest in Brazil today. I mean, Europe, with all due respect, due to gas and energy issues, and also given its physical proximity to the conflict today, has become a not very reliable destination for investments. So what do you have as a result? On the scene? Well, on the global scene, you have emerging countries like Brazil, where we are able to ensure our own food security, while of course feeding more than 1 billion people worldwide. As mentioned by Paulo Guedes, he began to mention, or he mentioned that we have about 50, or the equivalent of 50 Itaipu power plants along the Brazilian northeastern coastline, both wind and solar projects. All resources have a lot of constant wind pattern, but no major wind blasts or storms. Absolutely. I mean, no other country is as endowed with resources as we are. What we do now lack is, of course, street politics with a sense of responsibility. It serves no purpose whatsoever for you to be doing well if the whole country is a fire out there and not doing well whatsoever. This is our homeland. I remember someone say the other day, well, if Brazil doesn't go well, I can always go to another country. Well, other countries are not that well either. I mean, this is our homeland. This is where we belong, and we cannot separate politics from the economy. I mean, I did not really have what it takes to be the president. I was born to be a member of the military, spent a lot of time in parliament, joined politics out of almost by chance, and all of the lawsuits I was involved in were only due to what I said while in Parliament, nothing else, and none of them actually proved successful. And I believe, you may disagree, but I believe God has truly given us a hand and given us a chance for us to become aware of the fact that we must play the game within the criteria set forth under the Constitution. And those who are not doing so must be brought on board. It is usual for leaders of the executive to do whatever they can to remain in power, not the opposite. The Ministry of Defense issued an article containing 23 items indicating that it would be imprudent or unwise to complete an electoral process under the veil of mistrust. I mean, who could possibly even expect that from a member of the military? Actually, the military or the heads of state should serve as an example. And what we have seen from the judiciary are threats. My role as head of the executive consists in making decisions, not follow the herd. And decisions are not easy. And may I conclude by voicing the following remark to you. In the past, Solomon asked God to give him wisdom. And more than that, I ask God to give me strength to withstand, plus courage to make decisions. Thank you so much.
Senhores, o Fórum de Investimentos Brasil 2022 faz agora pequeno intervalo e realmente aquela pausa estratégica.
So now we will have a short break, 5 minutes, get a cup of coffee, and we'll come back with our program. And of course, always at Brasilia time, we'll be back with Minister Paulo Guedes to have our first keynote of the day.